But first, Who's Views time, and now we have a very special presentation. A film can was recently discovered at the back of a fish and chip shop in Australia. Inside it contained an episode of Who's Views, not seen since the 17th of July, 1966. So now a previously thought to be missing episode of Who's Views.
Hello and welcome to Who's Views. Tonight, Eugene and Milton return to review the brand new Doctor Who episode, The War Machine, starring William Hartnell as Doctor Who.
A very good evening to you and welcome to Who's Views. Today we are reviewing the brand new Doctor Who episode, The War Machines. And joining me, as always, is Milton Wigglesworth. Good evening, Milton.
Hello, Eugene. It's really good to be here, isn't it?
It is, Milton. If you could just speak up a little bit, we might try that one more time.
Good evening, Eugene. It's great to be here.
As always, yes, it's always very exciting to review a new episode of Doctor Who. And The War Machines seems like something of a departure from traditional Doctor Who episodes. But we will get into that very shortly. First of all, how was your day, Milton? I understand you went train spotting.
Yes, I did. They're rolling out some new diesels, apparently. I still saw mainly steam engines, but I was sitting on the bridge, and at one point a jet of steam did rather enter the lower leg. But I'm still hoping to see the diesel trains because they do sound rather exciting. I like trains.
Yes, modern technology will never cease to amaze me. And speaking of modern technology, that brings us nicely and neatly, if you will, to the themes of the latest Doctor Who episode, The War Machines. Now, some rather fantastical science fiction concepts were presented in The War Machines, don't you think?
I do think it was very exciting. It was very different, but it did look like very modern science fiction, like what you see with that Quatermass gentleman, I thought. Didn't you think
yes,
it was like Quatermass?
Absolutely, and of course that's a review for another time. We very much look forward to discussing that particular feature. The Votan, which was an interesting concept, the idea of a computer that was interconnected around the world and that you could ask various questions.
Well, it's very much science fiction, isn't it? I mean, I can't imagine anything like that would ever happen, certainly not in our lifetimes or our children's, were we married. But, you know, I thought it was an incredible idea. Some kind of computers linked across the world, a kind of internetwork of computers was an incredible idea. And I'm not aware of that being thought of before in science fiction. It was a genius idea, really. Genius.
Well, first to your first point, I think you're selling yourself short, Milton. I think a lovely lady is waiting for you just around the corner. Not literally, I hasten to add, because that would be rather strange. Interesting, though, there was a scene that I noticed which harkened back to my favorite film, Doctor Who and the Daleks, where Wotan, or is it Votan? I never know, described the Doctor as Doctor Who. Now, this was quite a controversial scene, don't you think?
I didn't expect that at all. That caught me completely by surprise. I mean, we've always gone by the idea that he's just Doctor or grandfather, but never actually Doctor Who. I always thought that was the name of the television program. I didn't think that was the name of the character. And it completely confused me. I think it'll be interesting to see as we go on with another 1, 2, 3 years of Mr. Hartnell's portrayal, whether this comes back and we see this or hear this more and more. I wasn't expecting it, but yes, it's very much like what we saw with Mr. Cushing.
I personally wasn't that enamored with the approach of that script writing piece. In fact, let's now cross to our viewers and see what they have to say. Jeremy writes in saying, "Hello, Eugene. Hello, Milton. I personally enjoyed The War Machines, but I did not like the Doctor being referred to as Doctor Who. It took me out of the reality of the program. I think this is very important, and moving forward, if Doctor Who is indeed to last another 3 years, then they must keep to the integrity of the character and not stray from who the Doctor is. In fact, who the Doctor is the mystery. It is the name of the show, Doctor Who. We should never reveal who the Doctor is, who his family is, even his romantic affiliations. Heaven forbid."
Absolutely, we don't want to go there. I don't think that's what the program's about at all. There's plenty of programs on the television that relate to things like relations. We don't need any of that. This is different.
In fact, I would say to Innes Lloyd, I would say to him, or even other producers, if such an occasion arose, that there should in fact be no hanky-panky in the TARDIS whatsoever. Another writer writes in, Milton, asking, "Wouldn't it be nice if we had Doctor Who toys?" Milton, what are your thoughts?
Of course, we have the Dalek toys, don't we? I bought 1 or 2, 11 of those, and there were some Mechanoid toys, but I wasn't able to get hold of those. And I did get hold of a Menoptera badge, but I don't have it on today. I'm not allowed to pin it on myself. I do tend to stab myself and ruin my shirts.
I hope. In fact, I notice you've got your Dalek gun in the background there on your shelf. That looks very exciting.
Yes, that Ray Blaster, that's very exciting. I'm hoping to get the projector too as well at some point, so it'll be like watching episodes on my ceiling. I just need to paint it white first because it's dark blue at the moment.
The concept of watching Doctor Who at your own behest is in itself science fiction, wouldn't you think? I personally like to put my tape recorder, the reel-to-reel, and point the microphone at the television, and I can enjoy it endlessly afterwards, listening to it. Unfortunately, my mother's dishes make a bit of a noise at some of the crucial moments, but anyway, not to worry. But I also had some film that I shot with my father's Bolex camera, and I put it in front of the television, and I filmed the recent Doctor Who episode. It's very difficult to get the sound from the tape recorder and the film to match up. That causes endless consternation.
I can't imagine what it must be like to be able to watch back Doctor Who's in your own time. You're right, it is talk of science fiction. I'd love to live in a world where you could do that, and just marvel at all the exciting bits that you miss. I've tried recording as well, microphone by the television speaker, but unfortunately I was so engrossed in it was the story with when Stephen Taylor was still traveling with the Doctor. I was recording that, and unfortunately I was so engrossed in the episode I didn't see that the dog had pulled the microphone or knocked the microphone off and thought it was something to eat, and when I played the tape back, all I got was some heavy breathing.
Well, I would hold some hope there, Milton, because as with An Unearthly Child, we got to see the episode twice, and I'm sure the BBC are very, very stringent in their library protocols, and they'll be having all those episodes there for us to once again maybe watch on a re-showing, don't you think?
When they pause for a break, like they did just before we saw the Daleks coming back. We'd had a break, hadn't we, for a few weeks? It would be wonderful to think that they could show. It was horrible, but it'd be great to see all those episodes again. You know, I look forward to when they show everything from An Earthly Child all the way through Aztecs and Marco Polo. Wasn't that wonderful? I'd love to see Marco Polo again. I look forward to that.
I think the BBC...
Yes, we will.
Certainly have a very secure library, and we will one day see these wonderful episodes again.
We know we can trust the BBC, don't we? They are very diligent with the material. Yes.
That's one thing I always say. You can always trust the BBC in all manner of things. So back to the story at hand, the War Machines. There was an interesting scene in a nightclub with the Doctor visiting his new assistants, by the looks of things, Polly and Ben. That was an interesting scene, don't you think? A rather modern setting for Doctor Who. Oh, I sound like Wotan. I'm calling him Doctor Who now. The Doctor. I don't think I liked that very much. I thought it was too modern, and I thought Polly, as attractive as she is, was a little bit too progressive for my liking.
She was certainly the focal point when she was on screen, wasn't she? Especially with those very large eyelashes. I found myself, I'll be honest, I found myself a little bit entranced by those eyelashes. They did flutter at many times per second, and I found it very fetching. Whether it was appropriate for Doctor Who knows? There's a thing that might catch on, who knows? But I think, yes, it was odd seeing the Doctor walking down the steps of a nightclub was not what I would expect to see at all. Walking into a control room with Daleks, maybe, but a nightclub with people dancing to popular music was not what we're used to, and I'm not sure we should be doing it.
It was a very strange story. We're used to going to other planets and exciting times and historical adventures and meeting people during the Crusades and meeting ancient Romans and so on and so forth. But this story was slightly different. It was modern day, as we've discussed, and incidentally, Milton, I suggest perhaps a Horlicks before bed this evening after that wonderful description of Polly. But Doctor Who having an alien threat in modern day was something interesting, and the use of the post office tower, which is very exciting. I'm amazed every time I go into Soho to look up and see the post office tower and marvel at modern architecture. It really is an exciting thing. But I thought it was interesting bringing these modern elements into Doctor Who. And I don't think this is a format of story where we have some sort of alien intelligence invading the Earth. I can't see that being sustainable, do you?
I thought it was a groundbreaking opening scene from what was obviously meant to be the top of the GPO tower, panning across London and then down, zooming in onto this street where you saw the TARDIS appear. I thought that was an amazing scene. I really liked that. But yes, I don't think you would have much success doing that very often. I think the public would get very bored with it very quickly. I don't see it catching on. I mean, can you imagine? The Doctor came out of the TARDIS and put that out of order sign on the outside, and the policeman walked past. But can you imagine if the Doctor was genuinely stuck there and the TARDIS was out of order and he was stuck on Earth in one time? I just can't see how that would work.
The very thought of it.
Heaven forbid. Heaven forbid.
Milton, as we are short for time, give us a brief overview of the story, if you would, and what you liked and perhaps didn't like about it.
I like the concepts. For example, when they visited Professor Brett at the top of the GPO tower, you had the Doctor's assistant, Dodo, talking to Votan, and it was interesting, the thought of a computer being controlled by your voice, and she was asking it questions, and you just think, if that was in the real world, imagine saying, Votan, can you play me Ticket to Ride by the Beatles, and it just plays. That concept I found amazing, but very quickly the idea of this man-made false intelligence, if you like, taking over and controlling people's minds was really quite frightening. I like the effect that seemed to come from the big light. But we saw lots of things that we don't normally see. A press conference with lots of newspaper people. It was a really crowded room. We normally only see a few people in any one scene in Doctor Who. But there they are, and they'd obviously gone to a lot of detail. You saw Wotan on this big poster on the back of the wall, and it was dotted round. I've written them down in my notebook because I make notes for every episode, and I have done since Unearthly Child. I've written copious detailed notes, and in this one I noticed that it was Woomera, which I believe is in Australia, Cape Kennedy, Parliament, Eldo, Telstar, the White House, EFTA, the Royal Navy, or RN, I assumed it meant Royal Navy, but in front of the table as well there was a lovely model of Wotan, which looked wonderful. I thought they'd paid so much attention to detail in this, but it moved very quickly. The war machines were being built very quickly. They were filmed from low angles and looked really quite scary, a lot scarier than they looked on Blue Peter the week or so before we saw them in episode 1. They were frightening. They killed people. It was really quite brutal. Those huge hammers smashing away. There seemed to be an awful lot of packing crates in London. But ultimately seeing the army fighting them and throwing grenades at them. The guns and the grenades didn't work, of course, but the army there trying to fight them was very exciting. It felt almost like a James Bond film. I don't think the army being a regular part of Doctor Who would work. I don't know what particular regiment or division or unit of the army these people came from, but they were very convincing. But I don't think seeing them for a long period of time, over a long period of time with the Doctor, would work very well. It wouldn't be that realistic.
Yes, I can't see the Doctor collaborating with the army on a long-term basis. Can you?
No, I can't see him collaborating really with anybody longer than 4 or 5 or 6 episodes, really. I know we had that very long Dalek story where he was collaborating with Brett Vion for quite some time before he was killed, but I can't see anything longer than a single story of the Doctor collaborating with anybody, really. No, I don't. No.
Interesting. No. Just an aside there, that Brett Vion character, I thought the actor who played him, who I can't quite recall, was very good. It's a shame his character was killed off. I would have liked to have seen that actor appear more, but not to worry. So the war machines themselves, do you see them as a potential replacement Daleks?
Possibly. It would be interesting to see what the Daleks made of the war machines. I did think the war machines' weapons were very similar to the Dalek weapons in the Peter Cushing films. Lots of poisonous steam. That was very interesting. But I'd be interested in seeing the Daleks against the war machines. But I think the Daleks would win.
It's very exciting. And of course, we're noticing in this series that the Doctor Who titles are the same over all the episodes. How are you adjusting to that change?
It was interesting. I liked it. It was quite jarring at first, where you see it spelling out the war machines and then the different episode numbers. I'm not sure whether that would work every single time, but I didn't mind it, and I wouldn't mind it every now and again if it was appropriate and if it added to the story. Although I have to say, I thought Mr. Hartnell was on fine form. Sometimes he can be a bit doddery and forget the occasional line, but I thought in this particular story he was wonderful. He was a scientist. He absolutely. I think it was interesting seeing the army in it, and Mr. Hartnell not being part of the army, because previously he always has been a sergeant, hasn't he? But I thought he was wonderful. The arguments that he had with the government types and the scientific organization types were fantastic, but he won their respect. But he was a scientist. He was a bossy man when needs be, and he was a gentle granddad when needs be, or a granddad figure. But I thought he was on fine form, and I look forward to seeing what the next 2 or 3 years of Mr. Hartnell would be like. I'm looking forward to that immensely.
Honestly, nobody else could play the Doctor, could they?
No, absolutely not. I think it's definitely a role that Mr. Hartnell has made his own, and I can't see the show working without him. I think he's amazing.
Well, let's conclude this evening's broadcast of Who's Views with our regular segment, Scores on the TARDIS Doors. Roll videotape, please. Well, Milton, we have our scores on the TARDIS Doors. Before I hear your score on the TARDIS Doors relating to the war machines, let's hear from some of our viewers. Pippa Noodle writes in and says, I am giving the war machines 5 marks out of 10 on the TARDIS Doors. Fergus Fiddlewick says, I'm giving the story 8 out of 10 marks on the TARDIS Doors, as I thought this was a truly innovative, refreshing new direction for Doctor Who, and I personally would like to see more episodes like this. Ooh. Sal Manella writes in saying, I think this was a terrible episode. I thought the short skirts and long legs of the ladies was quite unacceptable. In one word, I found this story to be very awake. I don't quite know what that means, but I'm giving it 2 scores on the TARDIS Doors. Well, Milton, that's rather controversial. What are your thoughts? What are your scores on the TARDIS Doors?
Whilst I was shocked about the skirts and the legs, because we're just not used to seeing them, are we?
Not at all.
I don't think they'll be on. I don't think they'll. Yes. I don't think they'll be there on view very often. I don't think Doctor Who companions will anytime soon be noted for their legs and short skirts. It would get ridiculous, wouldn't it? The next thing we'll be seeing a Doctor Who companion going around in leather skins or something, like a cave woman again. I mean, that'd be just crazy, wouldn't it? I would give this 8.5 out of 10.
I personally am giving this particular story, I'm giving it 7. I took a point off because I too find the bare flesh at the nightclub a little too jarring for Doctor Who. Well, Milton, we are at the end of another episode of Who's Views, and indeed another series of Doctor Who. Can you believe 3 glorious years?
It has been a wonderful 3 years. I'm looking forward to the next 3 years and seeing where Mr. Hartnell will take the Doctor. I'm looking forward to seeing what Ben and Polly have got to bring. I have to say, I wasn't expecting Dodo to leave so quickly, to leave pretty much in the middle of a story. I quite liked her, but she's gone now, and I don't think we'll have too many more modern day Doctor Who stories. So I don't think we'll see Dodo again. So that's a shame. But I do look forward to seeing what the new adventures will be, whatever they are, and long may we have Ben, Polly, and the Doctor, played by Mr. Hartnell. I think the man is wonderful.
Indeed, I second that. And you bring up an interesting point. Just briefly, Dodo's apparent departure was very strange. In fact, I assumed she was coming back until you mentioned it just then.
Yes, it was a definite shock. I thought we were going to see her just walking up and being all refreshed, because everybody else recovered after Votan was defeated, and she just didn't. We never saw her again. It was quite a shame, I thought.
Well, we do like lively debate here on Who's Views, and I would hazard to guess that perhaps she's not gone. I think she'll be back in the next series, personally.
That would be nice. That would be very nice.
Well, on that note, thank you for watching Who's Views, and we will see you for the next series of Doctor Who, which is scheduled to premiere, as far as I'm aware. I have an insider at the BBC, don't you know? My source says Doctor Who will return on September 8. So we look forward to that. Until next time, Milton, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Eugene. I've really enjoyed it again. I'm looking forward to September the 8th too. That sounds really exciting.
And we will see you next time on Who's Views. Thank you for watching.